What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And today we are talking about let it breathe. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means basically that we're going to slow down in order to speed up. It's an interesting thing to consider. So what I'm going to share with you right now, I probably am not supposed to, but while you're watching this, I am actually in surgery. So isn't it wonderful, this whole idea of we can pre-record a show so that we don't miss one, and we can share the information that needs to be shared at any time. So yay. So yeah, I'm going in for surgery next week. So we're pre-recording the show. And when I get back on my feet, I am so excited for this because this has been something that's been sort of slowing me down, right? Slow down in order to speed up. Take care of yourself always. Take care of yourself always. So what do we do here on Time to Rise and Thrive? What we do is we talk about this subliminal soundtrack, which is mindset issues. We talk about recognizing, like starting to see who you really are, your unique beauty, your contribution, your unique value. We do that every week. So if you are somebody who is looking for ways to sort of easily start to consider different ideas or shift your thinking a little bit, join us here on Fridays. We're here every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and I think it's 10 Pacific. So we're here every week. And you can find us either live on the show. You can find us on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. And when you look for us there, you just search Jackie Mott or Time to Rise and Thrive, and you will find all of the episodes. So if you've missed something, if you're listening live right now and you've missed something that you think you need to sort of go back and listen to, just go there and find us. There's also an Inspired Choices Network app. So download that from your Google Play or whatever it is on your phone, and you can find us there as well. Take us with you. It'll be fun. Yes. All right. So this is what we're talking about today. Whenever big things are happening, particularly big things are happening in our lives, we can feel a lot of pressure and sometimes become overwhelmed, right? Has that ever happened to you? I know it's happened to me and probably most of the people that I know. We can feel like we need to take action. We can feel like we need to do something right now. The problem with moving ahead with that is that we can actually be in reaction mode, and reaction is very often not helpful. So what do? We let it breathe. We let it breathe. It's kind of like this idea of a fine wine, right? If you want to have a really good experience with a fine wine, and I don't actually know anything about this because I don't drink wine, but I've heard enough people tell me this. You allow it to breathe. You open up the bottle, pour a little bit in the glass, and let it breathe for a few minutes before you actually taste it. It's this thing that we can adopt in every area of our lives. And it's very interesting because as I was preparing this morning for the show, it sort of shifted on me. I expected that it was going to show up this way, and it's actually shown up in a different way. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with that. So when we find ourselves in this position where we feel like we need to act, it is very important for us to stop and to allow ourselves that time, just that time to process, that time to breathe, that time to make sure that we are not reacting, especially if it's something that could cause a negative reaction to come back. And we're going to get into all of that in just a minute. But before we get there, I just want to share with you what I'm talking about when I say subliminal soundtrack. So this is my terminology. You've probably heard it said or heard it called different things. My terminology is subliminal soundtrack. So this is this loop of messages that plays in the back of our minds all day, every day. And it's made up of little bits of information that we've picked up throughout the course of our lives. So every conversation you've had, every relationship you've been part of, every lesson, every single experience has given you little bits of information that you've stored back there on that subliminal soundtrack. And we use that information to create our belief systems about everything. So two very important things to consider is what we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it is based on completely incorrect information. The second may be even more important, in all honesty, because we actually create the circumstances to support the belief systems that we carry. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very important for us to understand what's going on back there. We don't necessarily need to change it, but if you find yourself in a position where you're stuck, where you're trying to push past something and you can't quite figure out what it is, very often that's because there's something stuck back there that we need to address. And we can shift it very easily. So this is my specialty. If you are finding yourself in a position where you're stuck and you don't seem to be able to move forward or move past something, let me know. I'm here. Again, you can find me on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can find me on my website, jackiemott.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. There's all kinds of resources available to you. So check those out. And if you would like to have a conversation, stick with me because I'm going to give you some information for later on in the show that will help you to get in contact with me. Yes. Okay. So how does this thing relate? How does this idea of let it breathe relate to our subliminal soundtrack? If you are somebody who believes that when something happens, it is very important for you to act immediately, then you are very likely functioning in that space of reaction rather than response. And reaction can very often add fuel to the fire. It can often make a situation even worse than it already was. So if you are in this different space where you believe that, especially for very important things, that it's better to take some time, it's better to sort of process and think it through before you do anything, then you will allow yourself that space and that time. And then you're coming at it from a completely different space. So we're not reacting, we're responding to whatever that information or that situation is. So it's very interesting. Always, it seems, when I'm getting ready to do one of the shows, this thing comes up. So I was speaking with a lady that I was working with yesterday, or that I am working with yesterday, and we had this conversation of what is necessary. What is necessary? Is it necessary for you to do something, to take action, or is it necessary for you to focus, eyes front, and just get on with your life? What is the necessary thing under these circumstances? It's fascinating to watch and to speak with people about this stuff because we can see that subliminal soundtrack and those like deeply ingrained belief systems popping up when we're having these conversations. I can see where, somebody's getting a little bit stuck, and it's so wonderful to be in that position because then you can go, well, what if you just shift that a little bit? Sometimes it's a whole different perspective, right? That perspective thing is really what is created by that subliminal soundtrack and those messages that are playing back there, the perspective. So if you are someone who has ever seen two people who are like together, or they've seen exactly the same thing, maybe they've seen exactly the same movie or TV show or same book or whatever it is, the same exact circumstance or the same exact thing, and they have very different reactions, that's usually because their experience and that information has created a very different perspective. So you can see how important this is. So let's just get into it. Let's just talk about this thing about letting things breathe. The truth is that there are times when like immediate action is required. And that would be in, there's danger or there's an emergency or there's an accident or there is like some very serious, and usually someone's been hurt, right? We need to act now. We don't need to think it through. We need to act now, because usually somebody's safety or somebody's health and well-being is caught up in that kind of circumstances. But in almost any other situation, it isn't necessary for you to take action right away. It isn't necessary for you to respond immediately. Okay. And that's the thing that we need to do. So we're not talking about those emergencies today. We're talking about those situations where, something has come up, and this could be anything. Okay. I want to be really clear. This could be a situation in your work. This could be a situation in a relationship that you have with a coworker or a colleague, or someone in your family. It could be any type of situation. So what do we do when we find ourselves in this place? If you're wondering that kind of thing, this show and actually next week's show are going to be good for that. So I'll share information about that one with you later on. So one of the things that always has been part of my process is I think about this thing. So I checked it out this morning to find out what the quote was attributed to. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And it turns out that this is Newton's third law of motion. So I find it really interesting how sometimes these things are put out there for something that is completely different, but they are relevant to the thing. So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. And how that relates to the motion is, if something is going along, say a car is going along and there's a pole or something sitting here, then that's that. There's a reaction because you run into it and now you've stopped dead. You're probably hurt, all of that kind of stuff. So that's where it really was meant to apply. But I feel like this really applies in all areas of our lives. So one of the things that we really need to be conscious of as we are processing this kind of stuff is that we cannot control. Okay, so this is how this relates, this motion thing. We cannot control how someone else receives us. Remember, perspective. So I can say this thing and mean it like that. Two people could hear me say it, and one goes, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." And somebody else goes, "What in the hell is she? Oh my God, did you hear what she just said?" Do you see what I'm saying? So it's all about that. Now, we cannot be responsible for how another person receives us, but it's important for us to be as honoring of ourselves as possible whenever we decide that we need to take action in a certain situation. Try to be respectful of everybody as far as you can, but always make sure that you are honoring yourself and that you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, right? Like if you react to somebody, and I'm thinking about, striking out, right? So something has happened and you immediately feel like you need to do something. So you strike back out, whether that's, hopefully it's not physical, but it could be. And even in like words, even in thought and energy and all of that kind of stuff, when we strike back, what are we doing? Are we creating a possibility for a resolution? Are we creating a possibility for maybe things to go in a different direction? Or are we adding fuel to the fire? I can't control how you receive me, but I can show up in a way that is honoring of me and doing my very best not to cause that fuel to the fire. Okay, so very important for us to be conscious of these things as we are thinking about them. And when we get into the third segment of the show, always in the third segment of the show, we go into this sort of mini workshop. So there are tips, there's all kinds of stuff. Sorry, I've got a frog today again. So there are tips in the third segment. Grab yourself a pen and paper, make sure that you're ready for that. And again, if you are not able to do that right now, then feel free to go back and watch it, whatever shows you might like on the network. They're all there, and some of them are pretty good. Some of them are actually pretty good. So we are going to, we're going to head to our break just a little bit early because I want to spend a little bit more time in the information in the second segment of the show. So we'll go to break now and we will come back in a moment. Thanks so much for being with me. You're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And if you'll stick with us for just a moment, we will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, Join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. Today we are talking about let it breathe, slowing down in order to speed up. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there was a conversation, and I'm not going to go very far into it because quite frankly, it's not my business to share. But there was this conversation yesterday with a lady that I'm working with, and it was all about this thing of like, I want to react to this, whatever is going on, right? And it's so funny to me because the intention behind this particular show was to talk about things, and just in general life, just, decisions that we make. We all make decisions every single day. And many of them are simple, like what am I going to wear today? Or what activities am I going to do today? What am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? All of that kind of stuff. This is, of course, not those sorts of decisions really, because, if I spend too much time trying to think of what I'm going to wear, then maybe I don't get to where I need to get to, right? So this would be those big decisions though. And when I'm talking about big decisions, I want to qualify that in a way that there are resources going to be expended. So again, relationships in business, relationships in family members, that kind of stuff. When we are talking about legal situations, it's very important. It's very important. And I will share this with you. When we were going through my divorce, one of the things that I now kind of look back and go, oh, well, that might not have been so smart, is I actually took the advice of the lawyers that said, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's what you should do. And I took their advice. I thought, okay, well, I'm paying you a lot of money. I guess I should listen to you for your expertise. My gut check did not agree with that particular way of going, but I listened to that advice. And whatever the circumstances were created out of that were probably more difficult than they needed to be. So I own part of that anyway. But what I'm getting at is when we are dealing with any kind of situation where our time, our energy, our money, and those are resources that I want us to consider to be irreplaceable. Okay. We can never get back our time. We can never get back the energy that we've expended. We may be able to get back the money. Maybe. Okay. We may be able to get back the money, but if you're making a decision, you don't know that yet. Okay. So we want to talk about, these are what non-refillable resources. There's a word and it's just not coming to me, but the resources that we cannot replace, especially your time, your energy, your attention, your emotion, all of that kind of stuff. That is something that once it's spent, it's spent. So make sure that you're putting those investments in a direction that is good for you. Don't waste that stuff. And when we're reacting, we are often going to waste those resources. Okay. We're going to waste those resources because We haven't taken the time. So this is where it's very important for us to slow down. Okay. And it's kind of counterintuitive to do this slowing down in order to speed up, but it's a real thing. Sometimes we need to process, sometimes we need to be quiet, just allow things to be what they are until we know what to do. Right. One of my friends tells me all the time, she's like, one of the best pieces of advice I ever received from somebody is when you're not sure what to do nothing. Now, I'm not sure that I buy into that altogether because sometimes, I do believe that if we choose to do nothing, we are making a decision simply by doing nothing. So I am a little bit more proactive. I think that we need to process and we need to make sure that this is an action that we want to take before we do it. But I don't think sometimes it's just sort of sitting back and letting the reins go is always the right way to go. I don't really buy into that. So again, we make decisions all day, every day, and we want to be facing our day with the resources available. And that's why it's important to protect them. We want to be facing our day with the resources that we need in order to do the things that we need to do. So one of the things I'm thinking about is like professional athletes, Olympians, for example. They have a sort of a strict regimen most of the time, or at least this is what I've heard, for sleep, for eat, for practice time, for all kinds of things that they need to be doing, because they will perform at their optimal level when they are getting proper sleep, when they are getting enough proper nutrition, when they are following a routine that helps them to build that muscle or build that skill or whatever that is. Do you see what I'm saying? So if they're expending those resources, if you consider it to be a similar thing, if I'm expending my resources on this thing, what will I have left for the other things? What's going to bring me more joy? What direction do I want to focus my attention? Okay. Do I want to focus my attention in a way that is going to create more drama, more upheaval, or could, it might not, but could create those things? Or do I want to be thoughtful about how I approach this situation so that I still have all of that? I still have all of that. Again, I can't control how somebody else receives me. That's fine. That's theirs. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I handle things in a way that I feel good, I feel like I've done what was required of me, I feel like I've been respectful of myself first and everyone else as much as possible, I still have all of those resources, don't I? And I can choose whether or not to engage or how to engage. See, it's all about choice. This is all about choice. So again, we're talking about this thing of like, what resources, what's the cost to you to take this direction or to take this direction? Which feels better for you? Which do you feel is going to get you to that place that you'd like to be in the easiest, fastest way possible? Because here's the thing. If we're expending all of this energy, so say there's something that you really, really, really enjoy doing, or you really want to bring into your life, you're expending all of your resources over here on this, and this isn't the thing, and this isn't the thing that's going to move you forward. How much do you have to give to whatever it is? And one of the reasons that I mentioned the surgery is because this is really valid at this point. There has been a physical toll that things have taken on me over the last while, and it's been very frustrating. It's been very frustrating because I have stuff to do. I have things that I have to do, and I have things that I want to do. And so you see, we've got the have to list must be accomplished first, doesn't it? Right? We got to take care of whatever it is, our responsibilities, our bills, our kids, our family members, whatever it is. Your responsibilities are your have to list. And those are the things that must be done. We need the excess in order to say, oh, okay, so this is what I'd like to do. This is what I want. This is what I desire over here. Okay. That's where often the fun lives. So if we're stuck all the time in this, I have to, I have no choice, right? If we're stuck over here and we're not going over here and going, oh, but now it's playtime. Now it's playtime. Maybe I want to take a dance class. Maybe I want to go walk in the woods. Maybe I want to go to a friend's place and just shoot the shit and have a good time, right? That's the stuff that lives over here on the things that I would desire. And if it's a new career path, or if it's a class that you would like to take or something like that, again, those require resources. They require our time, our attention, our emotion, our energy, all of that kind of stuff. They might even take money, right? If you're registering for a certain course, you might have to pay for it. If you're going in a different direction in your business, you might have costs that come up with that. So we want to do our very best to protect our resources, not to waste them, not to engage in situations that are going to pull that away from us so that we don't have it to put toward the things that we desire. Okay. So one of the things and this is sort of a little bit of a freebie because I don't think I put this into the third segment, but one of the things to consider is, how do you feel about this thing? How do you feel about, like, once you get some clarity and you understand what it is, how do you feel about it? Gut check, man. Always do your gut check. There is something inside of each and every one of us. And it, like, some people call it, a spidey sense, or some people call it like a radar thing. And we can always tell when we're thinking about it, when we're feeling about it, how, and that's the thing. How do you feel? Do you feel like, oh yes, absolutely, this is good, I should do this? Or do you feel like, oh God, I don't really know? Do you see? Like, there's a difference. There's a very large difference between those two spaces, isn't there? So check in with yourself, and you've got to trust yourself. Next week's show is actually called Trust Yourself. What is it called, Christine? Trust Yourself. Seek guidance, not advice. Next week's show, if you are somebody who is sort of rolling around with this thing or struggling with this thing, I'm just going to highly recommend that you come back next week and watch the show, because that's where we're actually going to get into, like, really into, you've got to trust yourself. Okay. Do the gut check. Always do the gut check. So one of the things that came up, and this is something I've heard people talk about, and I've heard lots of stuff about this. So there's Bernard Meltzer is the person who said this, and I'm not sure if this was part of a book or what exactly it was, but he says, before you speak, ask yourself if what you were going to say is true, is kind, is necessary, is helpful. If the answer is no, maybe what you're about to say should be left unsaid. We do not have to share everything. We do not have to engage with every situation or every person. We don't have to do any of that. You have so much more choice than that. And I'm speaking from experience because, okay, so a couple of things about me that I probably haven't talked a whole lot about. I'm a Scorpio, and I also have a lot of Irish in my genetic pool. Okay, so both of those things have sort of people have an idea that we might be a little bit hot-headed, right? Scorpios ready to sting, all of that kind of stuff. Irish people tend to, they have a temper, right? And I'm not going to say that that's not part of my makeup. In fact, it is part of my makeup, and I own it. The thing is that it's also sort of a misunderstanding, because we can learn and we don't have to engage in those sorts of things. So there's a time in my life where I was probably much more reactionary than I currently am. And that would have been, when I was much younger. What I have learned is, number one, I now understand that striking back rarely creates good results. So whenever possible, I allow myself time. Now, that does not mean if somebody shows up at my doorstep and tries to punch me in the head, I'm not going to react. Okay. It doesn't mean that. In a situation, that's one of those emergent situations that we need to react, and we need to react now. But it means that for the most part, whenever possible, I'm going to allow myself to let it breathe. I'm going to allow myself the space and the time to make a conscious choice about how and whether to respond. The second thing, I now understand that I don't have to respond immediately. I don't have to respond at all. And when I respond without thinking is usually when I'm going to be in that space of contributing something that is not helpful. Okay. So these are things that I've learned about myself, and I've had to learn to manage that kind of stuff. Now I understand that I need to allow myself some time to process whenever possible and come at it from a different place, because reaction, in my experience, has not been helpful. So remember, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We cannot control how other people receive us or the things we say or do. Make sure it's necessary and that you are speaking your truth. And most important, never feel badly for standing up for yourself. If you feel it's necessary to stand up for yourself, never feel badly about that. You don't need to apologize for that. Okay. If you feel it's necessary, then take action. Just don't react. Okay. So we're going to head to our next break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about slowing down in order to speed up. And this is where we're going to get into the sort of the meat of this thing. We're going to talk about what do we need to do when we're in, what's the kind of process that we need to go through with these sorts of decisions so that we can make sure that we are not adding fuel to the fire. Okay. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. When we come back, we're going to keep talking about this. Grab that pen and paper. Stick with us for a minute. We'll be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. Christine's being a pain. She's making me laugh. And I was just laughing because one of our Jays was bouncing around on the line out there. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I love my yard. Just in case I've never said that out loud, I love my yard. We have all kinds of like critters. We got lots of squirrels, we got raccoons, we got bunnies, we got And of course, the dogs and the cats and lots of birds. And it just, yeah, it's kind of silly, but I love it. I just love the critters and the energy they bring and the laughter that they bring sometimes. So back to what we're here to talk about. Time to Rise and Thrive, Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today we're talking about let it breathe. Let it breathe. Just let yourself have that space and time. So as we're going through, it's sort of interesting because I'm like, it's very interesting to me because I have so many things. The show always seems to go by so quickly, and I've got so much information, so much that I want to say. So I have to be, you know, on track. I also sometimes feel like maybe this should become a workshop. So do you remember what I said just a moment ago about like our have to list and our things that we desire to do list? With the health circumstances I've been working with, this has been tough to maintain at this moment. So I'm so excited to get past the surgery and the recuperation because there are so many things. Many of the shows that I've done this year, I would really like to turn into 1 hour or even a morning or an afternoon or something. I would love to turn those into workshops because there's so much to talk about. And if we do those things, if I do it in that format, then we can make it live so that people can ask a question, which is awesome, right? And then we can address things as they come up. So there will be a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up in the very near future. Again, keep your eye out. JackieMott.com, Facebook, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. Watch the show and I'll give you updates as they come available. On JackieMott.com, there is a free article that I wrote. It is called 5 ways. Oh, good. I can't even find it. 5 steps to create a mindset wired for success. So if you go and you grab that article, and it gives you all of these steps that we work on to shift that subliminal soundtrack. If you go and grab that article, you will get onto the mailing list. And then as this stuff starts to get ready to roll out, you will be getting notifications. So if you see anything on that list of prior shows, Enough Is Not Good Enough Anymore was one of the ones I really loved. We're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So those ones will be becoming, say that 3 times fast. They will become workshops or half day seminars or something like that. Get on the list, watch for us on Facebook, come and listen to the show on Fridays, and you'll be updated by all of this information. So here we go. Have you got your pen and paper? The first thing that we need to do, particularly if something is upsetting to us, and not everything is, but if there's something that comes your way that just sort of hits you or triggers you, or one of those things that you're just like, oh, you did not, right? Oh, no, you didn't, right? If it's something like that that comes up, allow yourself the time to cool your jets. Allow yourself the time to cool your jets. That's where, for me, and I think a lot of the people that I've worked with and a lot of people that I know, that's where the biggest danger of reaction and striking back comes in, is when you have one of those moments where you're triggered and you're just like, oh, no way. So when we react, it's true that it might be satisfying in the moment. It might be very satisfying in the moment. But again, we're looking at what's it going to create for us. And do we want to live to regret this thing? It's a thing. It's a thing that we need to be prepared for. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? It might not even be from the other party or from that situation. What is it going to create in my life? What kind of chain reaction might it start, or domino effect might it start in my life if I react this way? All right. So again, gut check is absolutely essential. Does it even require you to take action? Now, once again, if money is involved, very likely it does. Very likely it does. If it's a relationship that's important, if it's a legal situation, there are certain circumstances where we must do something, and we try to do things as well as possible. There can be deadlines. There can be all kinds of other factors. So the first thing really to ask yourself is, does this require me to take action? Does it require anything? Or can I just let it go? All right. So where is this impacting me in my life? Is it a requirement for me to take action on this thing? And then think about the fine wine. Let it breathe. Just let it breathe for a few minutes, for a few days, for a few hours. Let it breathe. Second thing, and this can be helpful, especially if it's like okay, so I don't know why legal keeps on coming into my head today, but if it's a legal situation, very often you have a certain number of days to respond to whatever it is, right? So if you're in a legal process and I mean, the divorce, it was like, okay, so I would get his paperwork and I would have so many days to go through it and come back with my response, right? And that's in a lot of legal situations, that's the kind of thing that you're dealing with. So particularly if it's something that has like a deadline, a quick deadline that is attached to it, then go and talk to people that you trust, discuss it with people, kind of kick it around. That can help sort of perspective on a number of different levels. Sometimes when we say it, and this is something I found over and over again in my life, if I've got something that's kind of rolling around inside me, whatever the situation is, and it's upsetting me, sometimes just speak it. Just to speak it. It's now out on the table and I can see it and I can go, oh my God, why was I so upset about that? Why was I worried about that? Do you see what I'm saying? What is it? 98% of the things that we worry about never happen. Right. So we get this thing goes and you're like, oh no, Chicken Little. Sky is falling. Oh my God, I have to do something. No, sky's not falling. It's okay. Breathe. Let it breathe. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So if you are going to go to somebody and discuss the circumstance, it's important that you go to somebody, number one, who knows what the hell they're talking about. So for me to go to, I don't know, for me to go with a business circumstance to someone who's never been in business, who doesn't understand how business works, that's probably not going to give me very good guidance, right? So if I've got a business situation, then it makes sense for me to go to someone who will have some experience and some understanding of what it is, right? And what I need to do. If it's somebody who, maybe it's a parenting thing, then go to somebody who's a parent that you respect, but ask for guidance, not advice. And again, next week, we're talking about this, seek guidance, not advice. Okay. So that's one of the things that's very, very important. And if it's not going to be helpful, if it's just going to sort of set you into this place of like rolling around in something really uncomfortable or really unpleasant, then don't talk about it. Pray about it, write about it. I mean, there are many ways for you to process things that don't involve, if you need to discuss it, do it. If it won't be helpful, don't. Okay. The next thing, consider the impact points to yourself and any other party. Speaking your truth and standing in your power is one thing. Causing deliberate harm is an altogether different thing. Okay. So what is your motivation and what is it that you can reasonably expect this action to result in for yourself and other parties? What could be the consequences? What's the cost to you? Is it worth it? Very important. Whether it's emotion, whether it's energy, whether it's time, whether it's money. Is it worth whatever this is going to cost me to take that action? Very important to consider. Okay. You're the only one that can decide that, but it's important for you to sit with that long enough to get gotta do it, or nah, it's not worth it. Okay. You're the one who makes that decision. Fourth thing that I'd like you to consider is writing it out. So this could be, I mean, again, go back to the legal thing. Maybe you need to respond in writing. So you write out the stuff that you need to write out. It could be a letter to somebody that you feel has wronged you or has misunderstood or whatever it is, right? It could be a journal entry. It could be a bullet point list that you're like, okay, these are the pieces that I need to have a conversation about, because this could be a conversation, right? So these are the things that I need to address. And Very often, especially in those highly charged kind of emotional kind of places, if you feel you need to have a conversation, I really recommend that you take a list in with you, because what happens is we get off track, right? We start talking about this thing and we're on track and we're on track. And then all of a sudden it goes over there. And then we never get back to the things that we wanted to discuss. So when we have that bullet point list in front of us, it's easy for us to pull it back on track and say, okay, now we've talked about that. Now I need to bring it back to, okay, and respectful. You don't have to be a jerk when you're having these conversations, unless, of course, like I said, somebody's showing up and causing an immediate emergent kind of a situation, in which case, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe being a jerk can be productive in those circumstances, right? The last thing, if you choose to act, do so in a way that allows you to feel good about your actions. Be thoughtful, speak only truth, and wherever possible, be respectful of the other party. But again, I'm going to say this because it is so important. If you feel that you need to stand up for yourself, do it and don't feel bad. Okay. And again, if this is something that you're struggling with right now, this is stuff that I help people with. So go to first 5 people are going to get a free call with me, free session with me to pull these things apart and have a conversation. Okay. So where do we go? Book www.bookacallwithjackie.com, and we will get into one of these Unstoppable You intensive sessions. And the value of this is $197, but because you're taking action right now, I want this to be my gift to you. So the first 5 of you who take action and go and book a call at bookacallwithjackie.com will get that session as my gift to you. And we can get an awful lot accomplished. So if you're struggling with this, take action and go there and sign up for one of these calls. Okay. So we're going to go to our last break of the show. You are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more and wrap up this conversation about let it breathe, slowing down in order to speed up. So stick with us for a moment. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to the final segment of today's show. You're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And today we are talking about letting it breathe, slowing down to speed up. So this is the part where we sort of just summarize the stuff that we've talked about today. And I think that the main point of this is we need to really protect ourselves, our resources. We need to protect our resources. Don't waste them. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy. Don't waste your emotion. Don't waste your money. Don't waste anything on situations that are not worth it. If it is not helping you to move in the direction that you would like to move in your life, right? Create the things that you would desire to have in your life, then you really need to think about, is it worth engaging? Is it worth acting? Is it worth responding? Or is it better just to let people do what they do and get on with your life, right? We can't control what other people do. We can't stop them from doing things. It would be so nice, right? It would be so nice if we could wave a magic wand and say, everybody just be nice to each other. Everybody just be nice to each other. That's not the world we live in, unfortunately. So your job is to use your resources effectively as possible. Act when necessary. Stand up for yourself if you really feel like you must. And protect the rest of those resources to be able to use for that, like, this is what I want list, right? This is the thing that has to be done. Take care of that and try as much as possible to have something left for the things that will bring you joy and pleasure and help you feel good and fulfilled in your life. Okay. That's really what I want to talk about. The other thing is, let's go back to Bernard Meltzer, I think his name was. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? And what was the other thing? Whatever it was I said, go back and watch that part. Is it true, necessary, helpful? Yeah, because so many things aren't, right? It's like kids on playground. There's always somebody who's going to say something or cause a bit of an upheaval or whatever. And we know this, right? Kids are kids. And they do that. They bug. It's a thing they do. I know it's not much fun, but they do. So it's that sort of idea. When you're measuring what situations are important, maybe that's another question to ask. Is this sort of like one of those like school ground things that I'm just past it? I don't need to worry about that anymore. So that's what I've got for you today. We're right down to the wire, my friends. And again, this is one of those things that I would really love to see become a workshop or a seminar or something like that. So when I'm back on my feet in a month or two, keep your eyes open. We've got exciting stuff coming. Okay. Quote that I'd like to leave you with: like a fine wine, very often letting it breathe will make the experience more enjoyable. Whatever you're sorting out, unless it's an emergency, remember, you don't have to respond immediately, and you may not even have to respond at all. Only you can decide. So allow yourself the space and time to make sure that any response is based on truth and is acting rather than reacting. And just let it breathe. Just let it breathe. Okay. So again, we will be back next Friday. Next Friday's show is called Trust Yourself. Seek guidance and not advice. And we're going to be talking about tapping into our own knowing and learning to trust ourselves. This can be tricky, especially if we have we're going through something that causes us to think, wow, I didn't make, that was not smart. That was not smart. I should have gone in a different direction. That stuff can make it hard for us to trust ourselves. So that's what we're going to be talking about on next week's show. Join us if that's something that resonates for you. You can find us again on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can find me at jackiemott.com. You can go back and watch any of our shows. Find me on Facebook, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. And I can't wait to be back with you in a couple of weeks when my energy's back up and I'm feeling so much better than I am right now. Thank you again so much for being with me. I absolutely love doing this with you. Every Friday we are here. 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and 10 Pacific. JackieMott.com. Grab your free article and book a call with Jackie.com. First 5 of you get that session with me free of charge. Thanks again so much for being with me. I hope that something that we've talked about today has helped you to shift your perspective just a little bit, because sometimes just a little bit of a shift will create so much more than we realize. Thanks again. See you back here next Friday. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.